My name is Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate for basic human rights for all people. When I refer to basic human rights, I'm talking about those common requirements that each individual need to have a progressive life. They include food, clothing, shelter, education, health care, and a job or a career. Today I want to speak on the subject matter, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Now this is a phrase I'm sure many of you as adults have heard over 100 times. I'm going to share with you my experience, and I'm not asking any of you to believe me, for I have learned that first-hand knowledge is the best way to receive and understand God. It is God's responsibility to identify the form in which each of us might understand and receive the message of God if God wants us to receive it. For I have learned that humankind has a tendency to lie one way to satisfy whatever their concerns are. And the best way to get an understanding is to experience it, to have a knowledge. And those things that you say are spiritual, I say, try the spirit, test the spirit. What the outcome is speaks to that situation and that spirit. Regardless of what anybody else says, it might work for them, might not, might work for you, might not, but your experience will teach you what it says to you. And that's all you can do. And if having done that, if you don't know God, it is not your problem, it's God's problem. He didn't want you to know it, if God is a he. In the story, the biblical story about Jesus' presence here on the earth, it is stated that Jesus came to this earth and did a lot of miraculous things. Miraculous in that no other individual were doing them. And he came as an individual, a man who lived amongst human beings as you and I do. There were people who had kept a story about Jesus, about God, going around. And the story that they were telling was a little inconsistent with the one that Jesus told. Theirs was talk. Jesus was action. He was able to touch the lame, they walked. Touch the blind, they saw. Touch the dumb, they were able to speak. Touch the deaf, they were able to hear. Touch the dead, and they were able to live again. And having done all of this in the name of the Father, the Creator, for which the others were speaking about, no one really caught on. And the story that was be given, that would come from those who were touched in a miraculous way, is always different from those who are speaking about what they heard, or what they read, or what they saw on the wall. In other words, experience spoke louder than anything else. And yet, people were more willing to follow the directions of that which was spoken about, as opposed to that which had been real in the lives of others who were amongst them at the time. And so, having experienced that, it has been said that Jesus Christ ended up going to the cross to be killed. In the story came that he was killed because he came into the world to take away your sins. And to take away your sins, that is, as it has been explained, is to have all of the sins of the human race drawn to Christ. And by Christ giving up his life, who had never sinned, dying, then your sins were forgiven, or would be forgiven. That's the story that was told. And I personally would say, to me, that's a face flat lie. And Why do I say that? Because I see what it does. It allows the people to keep on doing what they were doing at that time and even continue to do it at this day. And the positive changes that Jesus spoke about, the positive changes that Jesus was trying to bring to the people, as I see it, from his actions, were squashed. And yet, I believe that Jesus came so that we could recognize God in a new fashion, so that we would be willing to accept his message about God and change our own lives. That didn't happen. But he did what no other man, according to what has been read, what has been printed, or what has been talked about, has ever done. Why would I say that that was done as I see it? When you have done the miraculous things and it is not accepted, it is not believed, then what else can you do? But I see a miraculous thing still waiting to happen. Going to that cross when Jesus says, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? It indicates to me that he came to change the world. But he was forsaken because even Jesus is not God. And God saw that that was all that he could present through Jesus. And it was time for Jesus to come home. Jesus at first didn't want to go home. Why have thou forsaken me? Because I'm bringing you back. Yes, Father, your will is done, not mine. I'm willing to come back. And so he was crucified. And God presented one more story to the human race. As Jesus was buried, he rose again. So that any man who had any question about whether Jesus was truly a representative of the Father could squash that, because no other man has that ability. No other one has that capability. And so all that can be said was said in that. And yet, people reject it. It is also said that the road that leads to destruction and damnation is wide, very wide. And many there be that are on that road, on that path. And it reminds me of the mega churches, the churches with hundreds of thousands of members, the church that is being financed in the rate of millions and millions of dollars, big churches. And what are they doing? They are going and they are paying because they like the message. It is a message about getting what God can do for you. It's not a message about what you can do for God. People go there because they have no intentions of doing anything for God. They're going there to see what God can do for them in addition to what God has already done. Now that is the way I see it. If you want a different reason, you ask the people who go to the mega churches, and they will probably give you a different reason. But this is not just the mega churches. There are small churches who are following the same path. And when I say that, I'm saying to you that preachers, my friend, are not necessarily in God's business. They're in human business, and in your business, and in their business. And the evidence is that nothing is being accomplished for the positive. God is getting no recognition out of what is going on in the world today. There have been others that have lived, and the evidence is that they were truly serving God because of the actions they presented and the outcome. There are some that have lived during our time. I would mention a few that I'm convinced were following the Spirit of Jesus, the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of God. And they were, perhaps to name a few, Mahatma Gandhi, a man who wanted to change his country, committed, wasn't following the traditions, but to change the tradition. And he ended up being killed because of what he stood for. Just like Jesus. There was nothing more that Gandhi could accomplish in his time. And so, I'm sure Gandhi, when that bullet hit him, said, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Another that I I would say was in that category would be Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King says he's been to the mountaintop. He's seen the promised land. And he had done what he came to do. And there was nothing else that he could do at this time, but yet he was fearing no man. And I could see him saying, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Yet thy will be done instead of his own. And he was blown to pieces. Another was Malcolm X. A lot of folks said Malcolm X talked about hatred, calling white people devils. Somewhere in the Bible, I believe, the word says that Jesus called those who were in his day, talking about God, sons of the devil, their father, the devil. So it's not inconsistent with the word and that which Malcolm X used. But for the same reason, Malcolm X was blown away. You ever seen a preacher of a mega church blown away? Anywhere have you ever seen a preacher of a mega church blown away? I'm sure you haven't, I haven't. And why would you think that would be? I would say it would be because they're not a threat to Satan. They're not a threat to evil. In fact, they support it. Now you might would say, how is that? Just refer back to a little history. When whites were considered masters of blacks, blacks were treated as slaves. The Bible, according to them, justified the slavery that was imposed upon black people. And that same master who interpreted the scripture to say that black people were less than human, it still exists. Yes, it is true that many white people consider that black people are humans now just like they are. But the spirit of the system has not changed. And blacks are continued to be treated less than human. That's why we have racism. That's why we have so much hatred and so much bigotry. Because nothing has changed. Now, I stopped at Malcolm X, but there were others who have given their lives just as well. Now, there are also those who don't have to die. Those who are altruistic in their service to mankind. They suffer to serve humankind, who suffer more than they do, who would suffer even more if they did not allow themselves even to suffer to serve these. One individual that we would be familiar with is Sister Teresa. Sister Teresa helped the sick, the poor, the homeless, and she said this is God's work. Now, nobody would kill her for doing that. At least Christian nation, Muslims might have gotten to her somewhere, but she didn't die from that. She was protected. And so that is a service that I would say that God approved of. And those who are perhaps doing those things today. But you got preachers and others who believe that God, the Son, Jesus Christ, was the most wealthiest individual on earth, had access to everything. And this gives them justification for owning all of the Rolls Royces and the mansions and jets and all of the rich things. People who are really wealthy are no more wealthy than the church people. And they justify it as such. One man in particular, well, I'm not going to even call a name in particular because I'm going to allow you to fill in the blank. I'm sure you are familiar with someone who would fall in that category. I think about the 25th chapter of Matthew, around the 29th or 30th verse, somewhere there where they're talking about separation of the sheep and the goat. They're talking about separating people who were doing those things that were pleasing to God from those who were not. Having a place for each one to go. Now, they didn't say where they were going. A lot of folks try to read in that some was going to go to heaven, others were going to go to hell. I don't know. I can tell you that. I can tell you this also, ladies and gentlemen. In my lifetime, I was taught that it was better to be kind to all people, that it was better to, even when people visit your home, to make sure that they ate first before you did, because it was a courtesy. It was an expression of how God works. Now other people say that's foolish. Somebody come to their house, they're going to feed themselves and their kids first. I call that selfishness. Somebody else might call it wise. I don't know what it is. Do what you want. It'll all come to fruition in one time or another. I have a article that I put out, I printed, and I wanted to go out before the nation to describe some of the things that I have done, and the results of it maybe can help you. I'm going to add that a little bit later. I'm not going to do it now, but I will add it later. I will add it here at this point in the tape. Remember that. Now, what I also want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Is that trying to be honest and to be serious and dedicated to serve God is not necessarily an easy task unless you have truly made up your mind. Because not only is the world against you for doing that, everybody else that you know will be against you for doing that. Why? Because they don't understand. They don't know God like that. And so I would say to any of you who are serving God and you're not getting the benefits that you would like to get from it, don't worry. The people who resist and reject what you're saying, they do this because they do not know any better. Which means that it is more incumbent than ever that you stick to what you have learned to be your truth. And as long as it is love, you have nothing to fear. I remember recognizing that I was a part of the white man's world. I say white man's world because here in America, that's what the world is run on, by white man's government, white man's system. Everything is about the white man, and everything has to fit in for the white man. Now this isn't to put the white man down, because I am here to tell you that the same things that white men do, black men do, Asian men do, everybody does it. It's the same old scam. And I say this because there is one spirit anti-God. And you are either serving God or not. And if you're not serving God, it is the same spirit that is directing your path and your conduct, whether you're black, white, Indian, or what. You're the same spirit that leads you. And today you might be acting one way. A few years later you might be acting a different way. So it doesn't mean that the whole world has got to act like you at the same time. But the devil does his best. For me, I knew that in order for me to be successful in life, I had to change and be more white than a white man. In my early life, I accepted that because it got me what I want. Even though there were those who did not know how to be white, they didn't get anything. I recognized that. But I learned from one who in my lifetime took the words of God, took the Spirit of God, not only into talking, but into action. I saw it work. Dr. Martin Luther King, I saw it working. I saw somebody speaking the truth as they saw it. I saw somebody walking according to the Spirit as they saw it. And it benefited not only them, but it benefited so many others. I learned a lesson from that. But that is not the only lesson I learned, ladies and gentlemen. The miracles in my own life is what taught me about God, not what I heard somebody say. I'll use it every now and then because I know that's what you count on. But when I stand before you to talk about God, it is because of the miracles in my life. Miracles meaning no human being had anything to do with it. No human being could have done anything for it. Had it not been for whatever it was that took action in those moments, and I say those because it happened a lot of times, I would not be able to be speaking to you today. And it is because of these miracles that I stand here to speak to you, to share with you my testimony. But it didn't make me popular. When I stepped on the other side of the fence, the first thing happened to me was my first wife. I loved her. Now, somebody might say, well, you used to cheat on her. Yeah, that was a time when I didn't care about cheating. All I wanted to do was have some fun. But I loved my wife. To me, cheating didn't mean you didn't love. It just meant you were greedy. And so I was greedy. But I began to grow, and I stopped being greedy. But as I stopped being greedy and the love to flow for her, but the mission had changed from being the white man's dummy to being God's servant, she left me. Now, she gave me a choice. Change, or she was gone. I didn't change. She left. Well, I guess I was fortunate enough to survive that. And I'm sure that there are many of you who have gone through likewise. Some of you have survived it and some of you haven't. I say that keep your faith. It will get you through. And I know what faith is, ladies and gentlemen. Faith is not just a word. Faith is an action. Faith is believing that you can fly and jumping off the top of a building to fly. Faith is believing that you can swim when you can't, but diving in an ocean to swim and do. Now, it doesn't matter necessarily whether you fly or whether you swim, but you had enough faith to dare. There are so many miraculous things, ladies and gentlemen, that can happen in the way of God that I cannot necessarily explain. But I can tell you one thing, God can. Perhaps the one who jumped out of the building to fly, in the dimension for which this action was taken, they could have picked him up off the ground and buried him. Where in another dimension he kept right on and was actually flying. The one who jumped in the ocean to swim, they might have pulled him out in one dimension and buried him while in another dimension he was swimming across the ocean. God is like that. Because God is being true to what God's Spirit provides. Now, I want to say this. I happened to fall in love with another girl. I think we were in love. I sure loved her. In fact, I loved her so much that when we kissed, I drank her spit. And it was good, sweet spit. And I believe that she believed in me at that time. Even though she knew my faith was different than the church that she was going to. I think she believed that it was real. The things that I say, the things that I talk about, I believe that she believed that it would be true. But what happened was, ladies and gentlemen, nobody else believed it. I couldn't turn it loose because it's real to me. I've been doing it for at least 33 years of our marriage. And nobody, not one single individual, as far as I can see, has ever believed one word I have said. Now, there have been a couple of people who convinced me for a moment in time that they did. I was only to find out later that it was just words that they spoke. When it came down to action about their belief, they was just as dead as flowers in the wintertime outside. And so it doesn't matter that people don't believe me. I just wanted to say this about the girl that I'm married to right now. I don't think she believes a thing that I do now. It has been so long, she has not seen anybody else believe in it, and I think she's totally against anything that I say. Me speaking here tonight to you, I think she's totally rejecting it. Might be making her head spin downstairs, making her sick just to hear it. But I must do it anyway. And I say this to you because if you want to, I know what I'm saying is true to me. It might have a positive effect. And somewhere down the line, the enemy of God might decide to take my life, and God might decide that it is time for my life to be taken. Whatever the situation is, I don't care. But I say this, whatever you want to do to me, if you reject me, do not do it to my wife, do not do it to my family. They are innocent of anything that I say. to the world, if you want a witness to solidify you, you can count on my wife. You ain't got to hurt her. But you cannot count on me, because I'm going to tell it like I've seen it. Now that I kind of cleared her out, because I do know that you do drop bombs on people's homes to kill everybody. The devil is daring now. They used to talk about conspiracy theories. Well, now those theories are not theories anymore. They have been documented in books and publications for the world to see. Everything that you see in movies, they're all about crime and violence and exploitation. Those are things that happen in the world, truly happen in the world. And they present them in movies to indoctrinate you, to put you in a way of seeing them so often so that when they happen, you are kind of numb to them. They don't bother you that much anymore. It's just something that happens. Lying, cheating, stealing, killing. They say that's exactly what the CIA is designed to do for the benefit of those who trust in man's way. Well, I want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, if that's your way of expressing yourself, it's fine with me. I got no problem with you doing that. Here's my problem. My problem is that here in America, there are hundreds of thousands of children who are suffering every day. People who are homeless, people whose lives are so distraught that people are taking their kids, giving them to other people, giving money to other people to take care of other folks' kids, but they won't give the parents the money to take care of the kids. There are people in India, there are people in Asia, there are people in Africa that are starving, in South America that's going, they are so suffering. And no Christian nation care to the extent that they will provide. No Muslim nation care to the extent that they would provide. It is basically because, ladies and gentlemen, I say they don't know how to do this. This world is made selfish. People are selfish. All they think about themselves, their kind, and everybody else be damned. But I think the measuring stick, the one that determines where you really are spiritually, is the one that says, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I know for a fact that the provider of this earth have created it in such a way that it can produce everything necessary to provide for those needs, those common needs, food, clothing, shelter, education, and health care, and a job for everybody on the face of the earth. And it's only through this process, that, as I see it, that the needs of the people can be met. That the true understanding of what God is and what God is all about can be recognized. But nowhere do I see that happening. All I see is business. Business as usual. I want you to know that business is a scam. When we speak of business in the terms of profit, if you give a measure and get more back than you gave, that's a scam. You see these mega corporations who are not just satisfied being nationalized in their particular country, who wants to be global. What is that all about? It's about getting more ripping off, more conning, for the benefit of whom? Not you. Not you, the people. And so all of you, the 99% of the human race where the New World Order has projected that they are going to destroy billions of you because they don't need you. They don't want you in their world. They have the Georgia Gladstones describing what their intents are. In fact, I've heard it called the New Ten Commandments. We've heard about the Agenda 21. If you research it, you'll find out they're not hiding. They are telling you they got a plan to liquidate you off the face of the earth. and you're sitting down playing video games, watching movies, and laughing and dancing, waiting for that to happen, not believing it's going to happen. And for those of you who do, you're thinking that a man is going to come down out of the clouds and save you. That is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Why would anyone come out of the clouds and save you, but wouldn't save those before you? Are you so important? And those before you weren't? See, that's another form of selfishness. That's an expression of the mentality of the human mind absent the spirit of the Almighty God. Now, I know this kind of sounds a little rough to you, ladies and gentlemen, but I want to tell you that it is my experience that people who go to church all the time, they're at Sunday school, they're at the service, they're at the night service, they have been tricked to think that this is serving God. Many of them just go because it's tradition. They don't want to not go. They grew up going to church. They were told that this means that you're serving God, and they want to serve God. They've accepted this as a service to God. They don't know any better, so they do it. Not knowing that they are on that big wide gate headed to a path of destruction because it does not create an environment whereby the Spirit of God could be materialized within their own nation, within their own construct. But they are innocent. So that tells me, as I've heard it said by others, I'm not going to push this as being true because I don't know, that humankind, they live, they die, and if they're not righteous, they don't go to that wonderful place, but they return. Some people call that reincarnation. They return and get another chance. And other folks will say that don't happen. How do you know it doesn't happen? You have never died and gone anywhere as far as you know. Now, I'm not saying you haven't died. I'm not saying that you haven't gone someplace. I'm saying as far as you know. And why do I say that? Because as far as I know, I haven't. And I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to do the best that I can do today, so that if there's anything good to come out of this, then it can happen to me. Doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect. I still might have to come back. All I know is that there have been situations in my life that nothing that humankind could ever have done, but it was done, and having been done, I give that respect and that honor to God. Now, why am I saying all these things to you? I'm saying these things to you because people are suffering. Don't think that my walk is a walk without pain and suffering. I suffer not because I'm sick, crazy. I suffer because I see so much pain. And while I try to do something about it, I am very unsuccessful about the outcome. I had a preacher tell me once, what is it about a man who tries to preach? I want you to know that I never called myself a preacher. All I ever said to you, I studied to be a social scientist. But what I've said to you is this. I see the world as it is in my sight. And I have observed some practices that can make it better. And I come before you and I share it with you. And if you ever hear me lifting up God, it's because in that reality, God is the only expression that eliminates the pain, the suffering, and gives you the peace, the prosperity, and the joy. So if I say, it's God, I don't mean to be preaching to you. It's just that that's the way it is. Now, you can accept that. I don't care if you don't. I do. I accept that. Now, this preacher would say, how do you think one would feel to walk around and see a man who has been preaching and a member of a church, a congregation, or somebody that says that they're saved, born again, filled with fire and the Holy Ghost, see this person smoking weed? It's a big turnoff. Now they don't believe anything that this person has to say. That doesn't bother me, because if the people knew the truth, they wouldn't worry about that. This is only some conjured up stuff that they've been passing down for generations and generations. And I just want to say this to many of you. For those of you who get a headache and feel bad and go and take aspirin. I don't like taking medication because I found out that whatever medication you take usually has a side effect that's worse than that is worse than whatever you are taking that medication for. Now, I'm not a hypocrite. I want you to know that some of the times I find that the only way I can come down, the only way I can have some peace is to smoke weed. It is a calming effect. Now, maybe God created that for another reason. I don't know. If people use it for other reasons, I guess he did. There might be many reasons why certain things can be used, but one thing that marijuana can be used for is to calm your nerves. Another thing it can be used for is to break those chains and that indoctrination that you have. And I've experienced both. I want you to know I've experienced both, and I don't care how you feel about it. You know why I don't care? Because I don't have to care. Now, I want to get that out for anybody who's ever seen me smoke weed or been around me and smelled some weed. Yes, I have smoked weed, and if I want to smoke some weed, I smoke weed. God has not condemned me, and there's no way I'm going to let you condemn me. Now, I'm not saying to you to smoke weed. I'm not trying to tell anybody to smoke weed. I'm not trying to tell you to drink alcohol. I'm not even trying to tell you to go to church or stay out of the church. That's on you. I just want to say that life is meant to be lived. And it is to be lived in peace. It is to be lived prosperously. And these two will bring you the joy. If you are not experiencing peace, prosperity, and joy in your life, you are in hell, in pure hell. And rather than just sit up and get angry, you should try to turn your hell around. You have the ability to turn your hell around. And turning your hell around involves you taking an action, perhaps an action that coincides with the actions that others take. Yes, you as an individual can turn your life around, just you. But what good is your life turned around and you look all around and all this pain and suffering goes on? I can tell you this, it's much better to go to a party with more than you there. So the world is a much beautiful place when people experience peace, when people experience prosperity, and people experience joy. Now I tell you this, the American system of government and the systems of government in every nation of the earth is designed to keep the masses from enjoying peace, prosperity, and joy. And so I say to you, if you want peace, prosperity, and joy, then change. Now, if you conform into the systems of the world, it will never happen. So I ask you to try God. All I ask you to do is to try God for yourself. To try God for yourself. And I promise you, if it works for you as it will for me, we will have a better tomorrow. We won't have it today because you're not going to change today. However, it's all on you. I'm going to end it right there. This is Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate for basic human rights for all people. And basic human rights are those common rights that allows people to experience true life, peace, prosperity, and joy by having the needs of food, clothing, shelter, education, health care, and a career of your choosing whereby all of these common needs can be met for all of these people. Ran for president on that. Nobody bought it. Ran for governor on that. Nobody bought it. Got married on that. Nobody bought it. Standing here today and up until, listen, I've got almost 700 and some videos on YouTube and Facebook. Used to have stuff on MySpace, but I got cursed out from people all over the world. Now, if you look at my videos, you will find my videos that's been on there for 5 years. You might find one or two that have been tapped into maybe 100 or 200 times. I even got one that has been tapped to for almost 1,000 times. But most of them have been tapped 20, 4 times, 8 times, indicating nobody is interested in what I'm saying. But that's okay. You're not interested in what God is saying either. You might be interested in what your mega preachers are saying. Ain't gonna get you no peace. You might be interested in what your bishops and your pope are saying, but it's not gonna get you on that straight and narrow. It's gonna keep you on that wide gate. Why is it gonna keep you there? Because you like the company. You tell yourself, since all of you guys are this way, it must be all right. And if people are suffering all over the world, the rest of the gang don't care, so why should you? Well, remember the separation of the sheep